What should have been Night 4 of Caravel. Chapter 29, Legendary. Tella could not stop weaving flowers into her hair. She knew there were far too many. Her head looked like a garden full of blue plumeras, and she continued to add more. After Scarlet had left, a bouquet of plumeras had arrived to her door without a note. Tella imagined they were a gift from Jack, since they matched the billing gown he sent for that evening. Tella had started to toss the flowers out the window, but something about their perfume was familiar, in a way that made her ache at the idea of parting with the blue bouquet. She put on one in her hair, then another, and another, losing herself in their sweet scent and concentrating on the tiny act of weaving them into her curls, rather than the fact that she was having dinner with the Empress of the Meridian Empire. Just the thought unbalanced her, that her father was a governor. Tella had been taught all the proper manners for banqueting with nobles, but she'd never been very good at following them, and she knew nothing about dining with royalty. She took another plumera from the thin bouquet. A chuckle floated from the doorway to her bedroom. Tella spun away from her vanity, despite Jack sitting against the frame. She expected that for once he'd make an attempt to look regal, but like the night at the fated ball, Jax didn't even have a coat. He wore a loose shirt the color of spilled brandy, and ripped shoulders that made it look as if he'd torn off some sort of ornamentation, hanging tucked over burned apron trousers that were shoved into unpolished leather boots. Casual was too fancy of a word to describe him, yet magic still pulsed through him in a glow of burning copper. In one ungloved hand, he held a fresh apple as white and bright as a virgin's sheet. "Good evening, Tella. You know, it's not polite to sneak into a young lady's room. I think we left politeness behind a while ago, but—" Jack shoved away from the doorframe in one lithe movement and offered her his arm. "I promise to be on my best behavior tonight." "That doesn't say much." Tella smoothed her full skirts as she stood up from the perch. The gown she wore felt heavier than any other Jack had sent. One half of it was an unadorned pair of blue silk. The other was an ornament, combination of jeweled swirls, twilight blue velvet flowers, and glacier blue lace embellishments, which spilled down her skirt in a haphazard combination that reminded Tella of an October jewelry box. "Don't worry," Jack said. "I'm sure Elle would adore you." "Do you just refer to the Empress as Elle? Valentine is such a mouthful." "You call me Tella." "I like the way it tastes." Jack's teeth broke the skin of his apple, slowly revealing deep red flesh as he took a wide bite. Tella forced herself to accept his arm, knowing that any sign of discomfort and displeasure only seemed to give him delight. But, to her surprise, he behaved like a gentleman as they traveled up the steps at Valentine's golden tower to meet the Empress at the topmost floor. Jack held Tella's arm lightly enough that she could have pulled away at any time, more focused on his apple than on her, until after a few flights of stairs he dropped her arm and turned to face her abruptly. His sharp teeth bit into his lips instead of his pears of fruit, while his quicksilver eyes danced over her hair. Tella had lost overflowing flowers on the stairs. It was probably for the best. Jax began to frown as he took her in. "What is it?" Tella asked. "The Empress needs to believe we're in love." He paused, as if carefully choosing his next words. "My situation with Elle is complicated. If I could kill her, I would. But there are protections on her that prevent me. And though she's old, she's not close to dying. She is, however, close to passing on her throne to me, but that won't happen until I found someone who believes it's suitable to share it with me. And you think I'm that someone?" A laugh accompanied Tella's words, but Jax did not smile. "You convinced Legend to help you? You died and came back to life, and you dare to kiss me. Of course you're that someone." He held his eyes for a moment before his gaze swept past her. Tella followed the line of his eyes to a mirror hanging on the wall. It reflected both of them. To Tella's astonishment, Jax appeared different in the mirror. It must have been incapable of capturing his true essence. With his ripped shirt and unpolished boots, he still looked as if he just rolled out of bed or fallen from a low window. But he also appeared younger, more boyish, mischievous, rather than evil and insinuate. His eyes were a bright shade of blue, without any color or hints of silver. His skin was still pale, but there was a hint of color on his cheeks and a subtle curve on his mouth that made him look as if he were on the verge of saying something naughty. "You're staring at the wrong person, darling." Jax gently pressed a hand on her cheek, shifting her view so that Tella saw her own reflection. She had sat in front of the mirror pinning flowers into her hair for more than an hour, but she hadn't looked at herself, not really. Sometimes, when she gazed in the mirror, she swore she saw death, shadow instead of her own. But as she peered at her reflection, now she did not see death. Her skin glowed not just with color from climbing up the stairs, but with life capable of days and weeks and seasons of adventures not yet found. Beside her, Jack suddenly looked even paler in comparison. His glow meant he would never die of natural causes or mortal wounds, but her radiance meant she would truly live. Other people might underestimate you, Donatella, but I don't. Tella tried not to feel anything at his words. All her life she'd been underestimated by her father, who thought she was useless, her sister who loved her but feared she couldn't stay out of trouble, her Nana who thought of her was only a nuisance. Tella never even underestimated herself at times. It was always most cruel that the one who seemed to believe in her the most was the same being who was also slowly killing her. If I failed, will you kill me early in the same way you murdered your last fiancé? Jack's expression shuddered. I didn't kill her. Then who did? Someone who didn't want me to take the throne. Jack dropped his apple, letting it roll down the stairs as he took Stella's arm. He held her a little closer than before, almost protectively, but he stayed silent as they continued climbing, as if her mention of his former fiancé genuinely upset him. Perhaps if Stella believed him, she would have felt guilty, but he was the Prince of Hearts, and everyone knew their prince was not capable of love. The story said he had one true love, but Stella doubted he found her, and, given how casually he mentioned wishing he could kill the Empress, Stella doubted Jax was affected by the loss of one human life. Why does the throne matter to you so much? Stella asked after a few more steps. I was afraid I think you wouldn't want to be burdened by mortal power. Maybe I like the idea of wearing a crown. Jack tilted his head, letting more golden hair fall into his eyes. Have you seen the Emperor's crown? I can't say I have, but Stella had witnessed more carelessly Jack's dressed. And even if that were the case, she couldn't imagine the Prince of Hearts might fight so hard to be the heir simply so he could wear a crown. She was about to ask what was so special about the crown when they finally stopped their ascent. Stella hadn't counted the number of flights it had taken, but she imagined they were near the top of the tower. Two black lacquered doors waited for them, with guards dressed in full armor standing on either side. They must have recognized Jax. Without a word, the guards opened the doors. Candles fell from every inch of white ceiling, like waxy glowing raindrops, filling the doomed room with flickering spires of marigold light. Tella only had a moment to take it all in, to glance at the steam rising from the elaborate feast beneath the candles in the intricate carved stage of the other side of the room. Before a feminine voice burst through the silence. "We're finally here," and Prince Valentine rose from a seat at the end of the bouquet table. Tella had expected a pale spectre of a woman, thin and bony and colder than her Nana, Anna. But Valentine was full rosy cheeks, dark olive skin, and a round body, and that looked as if it were very soft to hug. "You, my dear, are lovely." Valentine smiled and was luminous, as if she'd been saving up grains to meet Tella. That expression lit up Her Majesty's entire face, making the golden diamond atop her head and the jewels lining her royal blue cloak shiver even brighter. Tella dropped into curtsy. "It's a pleasure to meet you, Your Majesty. Jax told me a great deal about you." "Has he told you how he plans to kill me?" Tella choked on a gasp. "Don't look so frightened. I'm only joking. Jax is my favorite heir so far." Valentine winked and folded Tella tightly onto her arms. "Because of her Anna, who's been selling her as a tree branch." Tella had always thought of older women as fragile, breakable things, but Valentine hugged fiercely, warm and careless enough to wrinkle her immaculate garments. After releasing Tella, Valentine embraced Jax as well. She even ruffled his head as if he were a little boy. "You'd be so handsome if you put just the tiniest effort into your appearances." In Stella's astonishment, Jax actually blushed. His skin was more blue than red, but it was definitely there. She didn't know it was possible to fake a blush. There was no way he could have generally been embarrassed by her fusing, yet his pale cheeks turned a little blue. After a heartbeat, he had a loop-side smile, no doubt to make the Empress believe that even though he was shy, he appreciated her attentions. It was disturbing how good he was at his charade. The Empress beamed, but it quickly faded. "You two look thin, Jax. I hope you'll eat more than an apple tonight." Valentine turned back to tell her, "You have to make sure he eats enough. If people are always trying to protect my dear Jack, so he never munches on one thing of my little bouquets. But hopefully he'll enjoy himself tonight. I've ordered a feast fit for, well, me. Aunt Anne laughed as she directed Jackson and Tella toward the table, towering with food, every dish imaginable, from honeycomb towers with incredible flowers to a candy pig with an apple in its mouth, with presents, with miniature fruit trees growing chocolate-dipped plumes and brown sugar-glazed peaches, wedges of cheese baked out in the miniature treasure chest made of pastry, upside-down turtle shells filled with soup, finger sandwiches shaped like actual fingers, colorful plates of salted pink and red radishes, water with lavender bubbles, and peach-colored wine and with berries at the bottom of the glass. You notice that there are no servants. I wanted this to be an intimate affair, to get to know you. Aunt Anne sat on the head of the table. There were only two additional chairs, both facing the theatrical stage, on the other end of the room. The wooden arch above it was carved with images of unadorned oval mass, frowning and grinning and skulling and laughing, and making a variety of other odd faces as they looked down at the closed fairy tale green curtains below. Now tell me about yourself, said the Empress. Jack says you're in Valenda searching for your missing mother. Tell opened her mouth to reply as she sat, but rather than allow it, Aunt Anne continued reciting an impressively long list of the other things Jack had said about Tella. The Empress even knew Tella's birthday was coming up and promised to throw her a little party. Jax also tells me you have a fixation with the fates. I used to have a special deck of destiny myself a long time ago, and never seemed to predict good things. She laughed again. The sound surprised Tella almost as much as it had the first time. She had not expected His Majesty to be so good-humored, or to love Jack so very much. So either nodded or laughed at whatever he said, and piled food on his plate as if he were a child. Though Tella noticed Jack did not touch any of it. He plucked the apple from the pig's mouth, but he didn't eat that either, and just rolled it around the palm of one hand. Then his other hand was on Tella's neck, his cold fingers slowly playing with her hair. It was for show, but it felt so unpracticed, as if it was the most natural thing of him to reach out and touch her. She swore she felt his gaze as well, as cool as morning frost. His brushed against her mouth as Jax watched every bite she took. You both must try some of this. Aunt Anne pointed to a tray of palm-sized cakes decorated to look like presents in every combination of colors, from tangerine and teal to silver and sea frost in the color of Jack's eyes. These are traditional engagement dishes, exclusive for royalty. Only the royal baker will make them. It's illegal for anyone else to commission them. There's a different surprise in each one that symbolizes what your future together will hold. Some are filled with sugar cream or represent a sweet life. Others are filled with candied eggs, symbolizing great fraternity. Aunt Anne winked again, and Tella nearly spit out her water. Jax, who had not eaten a thing since his apple on the stairs, plucked a jewel cake covered in blue velvet frosting, the same color as Stella's dress, and brought it to his mouth. When he pulled it away, thick raspberry jam oozed out. Aunt Anne clasped. It looks as the two of you will always have passion. Now your turn, dear heart. Tella was never going to marry Jax, so she'd rather be trapped inside of a cart, so it shouldn't have mattered which cake she chose. But she really didn't want to take a cake. There was enough predictions of her future as it was. Both Jax and the Empress were staring at her, though. This wasn't a request, this was a challenge. Interesting, Aunt Anne murmured. Tella looked down to find her fingers had plucked a soulless black cake, with a bow made of midnight blue frosting, the same color as the wings tattooed on Dante's back. That reminded me of the moonless night I met Jax. Tella lied. Oh, I wasn't talking about the cake. Aunt Anne fixed her regal gaze up at the stardust-shaped opal ring on Tella's finger. I haven't seen one of those in a very long time. It was a heirloom to my mother's, Tella said. And she gave it to you? Aunt Anne said it just as warmly as everything else that evening, but Tella swore her eyes were now pinched at the corners, as if her smile was no longer genuine. Did she tell you what it was for? No, it was just one of the few things left behind when she disappeared, and you were to remember her. Aunt Anne's expression softened. You really are a little gem. When Jax first told me he was engaged again, I was skeptical. I feared, well, it doesn't matter what I feared. I can now see why he would want you. Be careful with the heirloom of yours. Her tone hushed to a whisper. That looks like one of the keys for the Temple of Stars, and if it is, your mother must have paid a very high price for it. Tella's eyes fell back to her hand. It seemed unbelievable, but the hopeful part of her wondered if the ring she wore for the past 7 years could be a key to unlocking her mother's secrets. Pardon the interruption. A raspy voice called from the stage. Tella looked up to see Armando dressed like the murdered king, a fate that could either represent betrayal or the return of something lost. He smiled at his small audience, expression as chilling as his costume. A tribune red sword hung from his waist, and a gush of blood stained his exposed throat, and a wicked crown made of daggers sat atop his head. What a pleasure it is to be here tonight.